Hi everyone, welcome to this session. We're going to be talking about the listener registration process, which is an Oracle database background process. The listener registration process simply replaces the process monitor PMON process in terms of listener registration of the Oracle database instance. We will look at the theory overview of the listener registration process. We would touch on the hands-on aspect of the registration process and possible interview questions. Before we get started, better go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribing helps support me make more contents, and because this is my first content on this site, please do well to subscribe by hitting the subscription button. You can also hit the notification or notifications to receive notifications. Go straight to the point. So the listener registration process, as I mentioned, or also known as the LREG process, is an Oracle background process which was introduced in the Oracle Database 12c version, and it's available for all the newer release versions. So starting 12c, we now have the listener registration process, which performs registration of a listener to our instance. So with the listener registration process, the instance is registered with the listener. This particular aspect was handled by the process monitor PMON process in earlier releases. So prior to the 12c database version, we had the PMON process handling both the monitoring aspects of all other background processes, as well as the listener performing registration of the listener. So with 12c introduction, Oracle said, no, we should keep aside the PMON process to focus on monitoring other background processes. Let's introduce a new background process that will handle the listener registration. So this does not take away the fact that the listener registration process is as critical as the PMON process. So this means that if we shut down or if we kill our listener registration process, the instance, the database instance also goes down. Of course, this was an aspect of the PMON process, but Oracle still maintained this capability with the listener registration LWEG process. The process does not, however, play similar role with the PMON process. Of course, I talked about this because with the PMON process, it is one of the main background processes in Oracle, which handles the monitoring of all background processes and performs cleanup. So that's it. Let's go to my server. So I'm currently logged in as Oracle on my Oracle Linux server. And the name of my server is GW. If we do a host name, so the name of the host name is GW. And if we look at let's take a look at the databases currently running on the server. So if I do a ps of my PMON, notice I do have a CDB test database running registered. It's a container database, meaning it's a multi-tenant architecture. If I try to log into this database, plus CDB, and I do a show PDBS because it is a pluggable container database. I'll do the show pluggable databases. And notice I do have one pluggable database, the PDB2. The PDB seed is just a template, so it's really not an application pluggable database. The only application pluggable database I have here, or the pluggable database that can be used for. Back to our listener registration. With the listener registration, if I do a grep of my LREG process, just like I mentioned, it's called LREG. Notice it is registered to my CDB test instance. So I have the LREG process registered to my CDB test instance. And if I check on the listener to see if my listener is up. I think my system is a little bit slow. So yeah, I do have my listeners up in this case. So I do have instance CDB test status ready. If I clear this, so with the listener registration from the PowerPoint presentation, we say it is as critical as the PMON, meaning if we scale up the listener registration process or we take it down, the instance will also go down. Let's try it. So let's go back to the grep of the LREG. So if I do a kill of the process ID, kill-9 of the process ID in this case is 12347. Okay, so we verify to make sure that the process is gone, so the process no longer exists. So let's see how it impacts the database instance and the listener itself. So if I try to log into my database, I should see my database down. So it should tell me connected to an idle instance, meaning the database is down. And because the database is down, you can issue a show PTBS or you can select from this database. Notice it says Oracle not available. So let's take a look at the listener itself. So if I do an LSNL CTL of status, notice it says the listener supports no service, meaning the listener is currently down so long as the LWeb process goes down. So what happens here is that the listener registration process tries to connect, pings the database instance for availability, and so long as the database is down, the listener registration won't come up. So if we start a database even without starting the LREG, let's do this, or without starting the listener, if we issue a startup command, we should see a database instance come up, and also at the background, the listener registration will automatically perform the registration of the registration at the instance level. So let's do startup. Okay, so my database is up. So PDBS. Looks good. The reason why the PDB2 here is showing a read write, my pluggable database is showing read write is because it's currently in safe states. I did set my safe states. If this is safe state is making sure that when my container database starts or opens my pluggable database, it's this desired state I want my pluggable databases to be in once my instance comes up. But this is a different lesson for another time. So because my database is up and running, I expect my listener to be up and running, all thanks to the LREG. So my listener is up and running, and if we if we do a grep of LREG, we should see the LREG back up and running. So that's it for the listener registration process, and this is, I believe, this is a great feature that Oracle introduced in the 12c, just like the multi-tenant feature and all other aspects that comes with 12c. And the next thing we want to talk about is some of the possible. Of course, this is a basic architecture of our Oracle database, where we have the SGA, the PGA, the background processes, the database files, which is made up of the parameter files, password files, data files, control files, redo log files, and archive log files. So the next thing here is the possible interview questions for the LWEG. Some of the questions, some of the doing interviews, the questions are not asked directly. You want to find questions asked directly about, do you know of the listener registration process, or what are some of the things you do you performed with the listener registration process, because this is a less talk process. It's a process that in as much as it replaces the process monitor, the PMON process, a lot of people still think that this process doesn't exist. So the questions we will possibly come across will be, what are the new features in Oracle 12c? So it's an opportunity for you to highlight the listener registration process and its capability replacing the PMON in terms of the listener registration. Of course, another question could be, which files are involved in the Oracle Net Services? Also, an opportunity to highlight the listener registration process when you talk about the TNS names, the listener.or file, and SQLnet.or file. Also, an opportunity for you to talk about the listener registration process and captivate the attention of your interviewer. Also, the last thing is, how do you troubleshoot a listener issue? So when you are asked how do you troubleshoot a listener issue, it's you might take it in the direction of making sure you know what the listener is, and also how the PMON is no longer performing the registration of the listener. It has been replaced starting from 12C, 18C, 19C, 21C, 23C by the listener registration LREG background process. Thank you so much for paying attention. Next video will be uploaded.